Well, I debated with myself a little bit about whether I wanted to make this video or not. I've been tossing around the idea for about a week. On the one hand, I was thinking, well, other people have covered this in their own way here and there. But then I decided, yeah, I will go ahead and talk about this because I don't think that anyone's ever pulled all these things together into one video, along with the biblical context. And so I'm going to show you some pretty interesting things, points of evidence that lead in a direction. And, well, let's just dive into it. It might be a little disjointed and disorganized here, but we'll get through it all. As you know, I will say my piece. Let's start here with the scriptures. So, for I mentioned in a recent video that I've been reading through some old scientific works, and I was reading through an essay by Tycho Brahe, the astronomer, who died under mysterious circumstances. But that particular work referenced the eighth celestial sphere, which was the solid crystalline sphere or shell into which the stellae fixae, or the fixed stars, were believed to be fixed. So understand that this view that we live under a crystalline or glass-like firmament structure, it does go back a long ways. So Tycho Brahe wasn't all that long ago, hundreds of years. But then we have here scripture references that go back thousands of years. And we see in the works of Josephus that 2,000 years ago, it was the Jewish cosmology. They believe the same thing, that the Earth realm is under a solid crystal firmament, that is a flat stationary realm inside a snow globe, for lack of a better way to put it. I want to go over these scriptures. What I did was just search the term glass in the King James Version of the Bible, and we're going to go through these. Um, so it says here in Job, which is probably the oldest book of the Bible, hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong, and as a molten looking glass. Now that's pretty interesting because it's clearly describing a solid uh, physical object, and that's in reference to the sky. There's something going on there that doesn't fit with the modern scientism of our era. And the sky is described as a molten looking glass. Now that can cut two ways. Let's talk about that. Now both of these understandings of the text are really kind of in the same vein because we're talking about something solid, something glassy, something semi-reflective. But we could be talking about a molten looking glass or a molten looking glass. And I will say at this point that Pastor Dean Odell believes that the firmament structure is a lead crystal. I disagree with him on that. So in his view, a lead crystal would literally be a type of glass. Um, I disagree with him on this point, and that is that it doesn't say that it is a molten looking glass. It says it is as a molten looking glass. So it has some of the same properties. It's reflective. It's semi-translucent. But it's still solid. Um, so it's something that is glassy or glass-like. Whether it is actually a glass or not, I will show you what I think the firmament structure is made of in just a moment, and you can kind of weigh these things for yourself. But this phrase, molten looking glass, are we talking about a molten looking glass or a molten looking glass? And there is a little bit of a difference there. So when we think of glass, we typically think of a glass window. But a looking glass, or sometimes just referred to as a glass in the ancient world, was actually a mirror. So we're talking about something that is reflective and glassy or glossy looking, but it is molten, so more like an obsidian or something like that. These natural glasses that you might get forming from volcanic activity and stuff like that. So which one is it? Well, I don't know particularly. I tend to think in the King James that we're referring to a molten looking glass, just based on my understanding of the King James English, but it doesn't really matter. As I said, these two slightly different variations on our understanding of that phrase still puts us in the same final conclusion that we're talking about something solid and reflective. And we do have further context in the scriptures, which we're going to talk about here. The Bible talks about mirrors, and this 1 Corinthians 13:12, the next verse, would be a description of a mirror. For now we see through a glass, that's talking about a mirror, darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. So he's talking about this earthly mortal life, and then one day when we see Jesus Christ face to face, we will know spiritual truth in a much more real and alive way. And understand that the glasses, the looking glasses or mirrors of the ancient world, they were of a much poorer quality than the ones we have today. They were usually a hammered metal, is my understanding. And so the reflections would have not have been as good as what you're used to seeing in your bathroom mirror. Um, and so that's what is being talked about here, that distortion, that slight distortion or fogginess that might come from seeing your reflection in a mirror. It's going to be imperfect compared to seeing something directly with your eyes. And we have other scriptures as well talking about looking glasses or mirrors in the scriptures. It is an illustration that gets used in several other passages. Then we also have in the scriptures this sea of glass, a sea of glass. And let's talk about this. This is in Revelation. Before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. And then Revelation 15:2, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And if you're a child of God, as I am, one day you and I will stand there together on that sea of glass. What is that sea of glass? Well, it's the top of the firmament dome that currently we are living under right now in this earth realm, which is our habitation during our physical life. But one day we will cross over to the other side, and we will be in the spiritual realm, and we will stand on top of that firmament dome beneath God's throne. Why is it a sea of glass mingled with fire? Well, I believe in this moment that's being described here in Revelation, you have God's people assembled on top of that firmament structure underneath the God throne at the very moment that the earth below is being judged with fire. And that's why it's mingled with fire, because the light, the shimmering effect of those flames that the Bible says will melt the elements themselves with fervent heat. That is going to be shimmering up through that firmament structure as the saints stand upon it. I believe that's what's going on there. And we do have some other references to glass which are also very interesting in the scriptures. But these are referring to the building materials of the heavenly Zion, the city, and of the streets of gold. Pure gold, as it were, transparent glass. Now understand, when you take certain metals and purify them and get out the trace elements that color them, and actually you can see YouTube videos on this. I'm very interested in the series Forged in Fire and in knife making. My brother and I, we built some small knife making forges and made a few knives and things like that. Um, and so in my YouTube feed I get stuff on metallurgy and forges and uh, things of that nature. And I'm seeing these videos of people finding out ways to make gold purple, for example, by putting in certain trace elements that color it, or of making metals transparent. So the most recent that I saw was that they've come up with a transparent aluminum. It's aluminum, it's metal, but all the impurities have been removed and it's been structured in such a way that it is transparent. Understand that the purity of the gold in God's city is going to be so pure, it's going to be transparent like glass. It's going to be pretty amazing. And it's my understanding that when you take out those impurities as well, I've been told that it's very soft, that it's not like a hard and cold metal like we usually think of when we think of metals, but it's a warm and comfortable surface and transparent and glassy. That's what we have to look forward to if we know our Creator through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Now, I want to show you some things. Today we're going to talk about coffee cup caustics because I referred to them in a recent video. We're going to talk about what the firmament's made of, and we're going to talk about some evidence that we do live under a firmament, specifically sundogs. And then we'll talk a little bit about Operation Fishbowl and the implications of that, and I have a very interesting video clip on that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. And so unless I say otherwise, these video clips that I'm showing, they are being displayed for educational purposes. It is within my legal right to do so, to display material even if it's copyrighted, which to my knowledge these clips are not necessarily. They come from YouTube, my other internet searches, and from DITRH, Deep in the Rabbit Hole. Flat Earth Dave, as he's also known, his website is the Flat Earth Podcast. And then I've also found some of these videos on my own through various search engines and stuff like that, and dredged them up from other websites. They're not all necessarily from YouTube, and I don't necessarily have provenance for all of them. Some of them are stamped and stuff with where they came from if you're interested in finding them. And for a lot of these videos, I have not changed the video names. So you can always do a search using, if you can find a search engine that'll actually give you unfiltered results these days, I would say try StartPage or DuckDuckGo. You can just search verbatim for the video titles if you want to try to find them online or find different versions of them online. Let's watch this together though, and I am going to make some commentary as we go. So what you're seeing here, this is a phenomenon called sundogs. The sun is in the middle, but around it you have this beautiful halo and these smaller suns, apparent suns. So what's going on here? Well, if you ask a modern scientist, they're going to tell you that what you're seeing here, see these sparkles in the background? Ice crystals in the air are reflecting sunlight and letting us see these sundogs. That's what they'll tell you. But they're missing something with that explanation, because the ice crystals in the air, they let us see the light by scattering the different wavelengths and so forth. But the light's always there. The crystals are just letting us see it, the ice crystals. The real question, though, is what is bending the light in this particular fashion? That's the question that we've got to ask. What is bending the sun's light so that it appears this way? Well, we're going to discuss that in just a little bit. This particular clip is the best that I've found. Absolutely beautiful. And again, not my clip. And if you're interested in that, you can search verbatim this epic sundog scene 5 suns weather phenomenon, and you might find it out there. It might be on YouTube, maybe not. I don't recall exactly where I found this one. There you have it, though. That's sundogs for you. And what's going on there? Well, this fellow, this is the original titling of his movie. Actually, I think this one was from YouTube because I think he mentions hello YouTubers in this one. But I'm not going to show you this whole video. I am going to show you. We're going to skip ahead.
I'm going to show you glass dome in the center of the bowl, but I'm okay. Okay. Now, as you can see here, I'm not holding the lighter in the center of the bow, but I'm holding it towards the back side of the bow, which is where the sun would be on its winter solstice on its outer circuit. And as you can see right here, the white line going all the way around, connecting to the sides of the glass bow, which is where the reflection of the sun is on each side. There's the white line, perfect, just like you've seen in the sky.
So yeah, that was a very cool little demonstration, and I've done that myself with just a glass kitchen bowl and a lighter. You can do that as well. Pretty cool, and I think it's a very viable explanation for what's going on with these sun dogs. I think it makes a ton of sense. Um, let's talk a little bit about some other odds and ends, and then we'll finish up with a couple videos here, and we'll call it a day. But so what is this reflective firmament dome structure made out of? Uh, let's uh, let's talk about this article here. I personally think that it is superionic ice, and mainstream science outlets are starting to talk about this stuff more openly now. I'm just going to read this article for you and then give you some commentary. Strange form of ice found that only melts at extremely hot temperatures. You can see your little stock image there, probably a little bit more sensational than the reality. Odd things happen inside planets where familiar materials are subjected to extreme pressures and heat. Iron atoms probably dance within Earth's solid inner core, and hot, black, heavy ice that's both solid and liquid at the same time likely forms within the water rich gas giants Uranus and Neptune. Entirely speculation. Anyway, let's continue on. 5 years ago, scientists recreated this exotic ice called superionic ice for the first time in lab experiments, and 4 years ago they confirmed its existence in crystalline structure. Then, just last year, researchers at several universities in the US and the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center laboratory in California discovered a new phase of superionic ice. Their discovery deepens our understanding as to why Uranus and Neptune have such off kilter magnetic fields with multiple poles. From our earthly surrounds, you'd be forgiven for thinking water is a simple elbow shaped molecule made up of one oxygen atom linked to two hydrogens that settle into fixed position when water freezes. Superionic ice, however, is strangely different, and yet it may be among the most abundant forms of water in the universe, presumed to fill not only the interiors of Uranus and Neptune, but also similar exoplanets. These planets have extreme pressures of 2 million times the Earth's atmosphere and interiors as hot as the surface of the Sun, which is where water gets weird. Scientists confirmed in 2019 what physicists had predicted back in 1988, a structure where the oxygen atoms in superionic ice are locked in a solid cubic lattice, where the ionized hydrogen atoms are set loose, flowing through that lattice like electrons through metals. This gives superionic ice its conductive properties. It also raises its melting point such that the frozen water remains solid at blistering temperatures. In this latest study, physicist Ariana Gleason of Stanford University and colleagues bombarded thin slivers of water sandwiched between two diamond layers with some ridiculously powerful lasers. Successive shock waves raised the pressure to 200 gigapascals, I think that is, 2 million atmospheres, and temperatures up to about 5,000 Kelvin, or 8,500 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than the temperatures of the 2019 experiments, but at lower pressures. Let's see if there's anything else in here. I think we're going to stop there. If you are interested in reading more about this article, you can just look it up. It's on sciencealert.com. Strange form of ice found that only melts at extremely hot temperatures. Sciencealert.com. So, bottom line here, in between all the pseudoscience and the planets and the heliocentrism and the pure speculation about what's going on inside the Earth and inside these supposed terrestrial planets, which, as you guys know, as a Bible believing flat earther, I do not believe in the heliocentric model. I don't believe in terrestrial planets. Um, and I don't believe that they're being honest about what inspired this research. The powers that be certainly know that we're inside of a firmament structure, and they've been trying to get out since the Tower of Babel, as I've mentioned before. But bottom line is that you can have ice, which is a solid matrix of crystalline oxygen with hydrogen ions freely flowing throughout it. So, and this structure, superionic ice, is very temperature resistant. It can resist temperatures of, I think in my other video I said 6,000 degrees, but it's actually 8,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That's amazing. Ice that can withstand temperatures of 8,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Think about that. And it's also very conductive. That's the term superionic ice. That is also really interesting to think about because during Operation Fishbowl, which is when the government was testing nuclear devices, atomic weapons at high altitudes, um, they were recording results where these weird lights, aurora like, would shoot across the sky and light up corresponding hemispheres of the sky when they would detonate a device in one area. What's going on there? Well, the firmament structure is very conductive because of these. It's a lattice that ions are freely flowing throughout. And so energy, when it's discharged in one place, it can be transmitted to other places, and it just fits. It fits with what's going on there. Let's talk a little bit about Operation Fishbowl, interestingly named. Very interestingly named. And there were other nuclear tests that were Teapot and Wigwam, which are also some interesting names if you think about it. But truthers and flat earthers have long speculated that Operation Fishbowl was the establishment trying to break out of the solid firmament. They know what's up there, and they were testing their weapons against it to see if they could break through or damage it in any way. Um, According to one source that I encountered, during one of these nuclear tests, the flotilla was bombarded after the detonation with hail. And I'm really curious about that. I want to try to find sources on that. And if any of you are familiar with this and have a source on it, by all means, post that down in the comments. But I'm very curious as to whether that was actually hailstones like we see in normal weather. I've encountered those. They're pretty intimidating. I actually was driving across the country one summer and encountered hail that was bigger than golf balls. And that was I was really concerned that my car was going to be damaged, but it ended up being okay. But that was a harrowing experience. Um, but I'm curious as to whether the flotilla was bombarded with hailstones or whether it was actually just ice chunks breaking free from the underside of the firmament structure. Kind of like, you know, you see videos and stuff of, well, in the in the movies when there's an earthquake and it shakes a building, you'll see like dust and little pieces of plaster coming down from the ceiling. I'm kind of wondering if that's what happened during some of these high altitude detonations. I want to show you a video though that's incredibly fascinating. That relates to Operation Fishbowl. I'm just going to mute it. I'll unmute it. This was a silent film. Somebody took it and put some music to it, and you can see very faintly here. The channel is Adam3196. I believe there are other atomic weapon tests videos on this channel. What's fascinating about this one in particular, though, is it almost looks like it hit something and then just rippled out from there. It's one of the more interesting high altitude nuclear tests that I've found. Fascinating. What's going on here? Well, I do think that they detonated a device against the firmament structure, which, by the way, I didn't consent to, nor did any of the ordinary American public who were living at the time. If they had succeeded in penetrating it, the Bible tells us there's waters above. Not something we should be messing with. Not that God's going to permit us to get through that. He foiled the Tower of Babel, which the Bible says they were intentionally trying to build a tower to reach heaven. And God, in the passage, makes it clear that if they put their mind to it and worked together, it was something that they could accomplish. That's pretty interesting stuff. Anyway, I think we've seen about all we need to see there. Next, I want to talk about coffee cup caustics. This relates to the shape of light over the surface of the earth realm in which we live. So what's a coffee cup caustic? Well, there's actually, the other day when I pulled this up, where was it? One of these websites that had some of these pictures on it. It was something like, yeah, here we go. Bean thinking. I chuckled a little bit. Bean thinking. Now, this picture doesn't relate to coffee cup caustics at all. It's just talking about caustic coffee itself, I guess. But that phrase struck me a little bit, and I think people have, when I initially heard about this and started digging around on it, there wasn't a ton. You could find some cool pictures that photographers had taken and stuff like that. So coffee cup caustic is when you have a slightly reflective inside surface of your coffee cup, and the light is caught in such a way that it illuminates part of the coffee in a really unusual way, and it can wrap light in strange ways, and you can actually get these wings, you can get these areas of darkness. Pretty wild. Now, and the reason that bean thinking made me chuckle a little bit is because more and more people are drinking coffee, and so I think that's just why people are more and more aware of this phenomenon because they're staring, you know, uh, pensively into their coffee cups and then noticing this. But you can generate this effect with a coffee cup with a slightly reflective interior. Actually, these guys have done it with, gotten a little bit of an effect with just a normal ceramic coffee cup. Obviously, you're going to get a better effect with a metal coffee cup. But with a single point light source, you can get this, and you can tinker with it, move your light source in and out, and it'll change the shape of the lit areas and the dark areas on the bottom. And now people are actually taking this phenomenon and they're researching it, they're modeling it. It's helping them to understand how uh, light bends in in a curved reflective container and things like that. It's interesting stuff. But this specifically is interesting because it relates to how the sun's light works and how it lights up different areas of the Earth realm. I think in my Gleason map video, I pointed out that the sun's not just illuminating a perfectly circular area of the Earth realm. It actually varies based on the time of year. When the sun is closer to that outside periphery, nearer to the firmament wall, the firmament dome wall, so to speak, you do have a lit area that has these wings that wrap around. Now, it does not wrap around all the way, ever, because I don't think you get 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica. That's never been conclusively proven, even though the establishment says that it does happen that way. Jeranism and some others have looked into that and found that the footage from these webcams in Antarctica is being um, manipulated, and they're not being straightforward with us about that. But coffee cup caustics, you can look into some of this stuff if you're interested. I'm not really so interested in the coffee cup aspect of it. It's interesting to me due to its relation to flat Earth. And I want to show you one last video. So this is from Flat Earth Dave. I'm going to mute this and try to just find, because he actually, yeah, I don't know if he did this himself. Flat Earth Dave is a great guy, and what I love about him is he's always experimenting and working things out, like with his terrain deck that he set up on his kitchen counter. showing that perspective makes it look like the sun's going down. And here we have whoever this is, whether it's Flat Earth Dave or someone else, they're playing around with a single point light source. Now, I will point out that the light source in this case is outside of the dome, but they've got a little snow globe or paperweight set up with an AE map inside of it, it looks like. And showing the areas of light and darkness on the Earth and how you can get those. The wings effect, yeah, there it is. The wings effect isn't tremendously pronounced in this particular setup, but you can kind of see the unusual, like the shape of the light and darkness can curve into that almost, I don't know what you want to call it, kidney bean shape maybe. Fascinating stuff. And understand that I do think that this could work if the light source were inside. There's some debate as to whether our sun is actually a projection from a light source that is outside of the firmament dome, because the Bible just calls it a light. It doesn't really say one way or another. Or whether it is actually, there's some physical structure there that's emanating the light and it's inside. I do think, so the light is definitely inside of the firmament, and the Bible's clear about that as well. I tend to think that the origin of the light is inside of the firmament also. That's my thought on that. And I suspect this setup would still work if the light source were inside the firmament structure, and it's reflective, on the inside surface of the glass-like firmament dome. So this stuff's pretty wild. And then he does pull up the coffee cup caustics as well, and just shows. Now in this case, it works a little better if you do this in a dark room with a single point light source as well. It looks more like he was just doing it in a bright room, and the coffee cup's just collecting the light from all the ambient light. But still, it demonstrates the principle pretty clearly, I think. And I think this stuff is really fascinating. Uh, like I said, just more points of data, points of evidence that attest to where we really live. And by the way, if you haven't gotten, so this book is great. I was able to snag a copy of it. You have to hunt around a little bit online. It's well worth it. It's a great coffee table book. Nice size, nice pictures, good explanation of the emergency landings. And I did get this app eventually when I finally got a phone that could handle running it. um, good app. This is the one that Flat Earth Dave um, paid for its development himself, and it's just it is a clock on a flat Earth map, and it is functional. It's functional for showing you where the constellations are going to be. It's functional for showing you where the positions of the sun and moon are going to be. It is pretty cool. And then he has in the app a lot of resources like links to YouTube videos about how different things work if you're interested in the mechanics of our Earth realm. Alright, anyway, this is a good place, I think, to break off this video and call it quits. I hope it's been interesting, and you guys have a good week. I'll see you next time.